Yeah. Smoke two joints. Hey, would you rather smoke two joints or would you rather do your homework? Smoke two joints. I knew you were gonna say that. Smoke two joints.
I don't think you know this, but most of these dispensaries that you go to, you walk in and there's glass jars full of pot. And you go in there and you choose it, and they have edibles usually in a fridge behind them. People are trying to make this professional, but the problem is there's still a stigma with it, and it's an interesting place right now, I think.
Well, I mean, there's still marijuana is a huge cash crop for the Mexican cartels. When when they're waiting on a shipment of coke, or if they're having problems getting the precursors for methamphetamine, marijuana is always that cash crop. It's huge money. When I was in Guadalajara, there was like a kilo, which is 2.2 pounds. A kilo of marijuana was selling for about $36. And by the time it'd make it up to Colorado, you're talking $350 to $400. So there's a huge margin on it. A lot of that cost is transportation and paying bribes along the way up through Mexico and to get it over the border. But I mean, you're talking huge profit margin on it. So it's a big cash crop. They know that if it's not outrageous amount, like maybe a couple 300 pounds of weed. If you get caught with it, you're not going to do a lot of federal time. And a lot of times we were seeing, when I was in Guadalajara, we were seeing them spending more money. It cost them more for the cover load to smuggle it up than it did for the actual load of marijuana. From down there, it's a very small, because it can be grown right there. It's a very small investment on their part. Like I said, they could spend more money on just the cover load to smuggle it than they would on the actual load of marijuana. So if they lost, I mean, we had cases going where they'd lose 5 to 10 tons at a time, and it really wasn't all that big a deal to them, because they could go harvest more. So there's not a whole lot of risk in it as far as they're concerned, and it's huge money once it makes its way, even if you lose a substantial portion of it. Believe me, the Mexicans are not going to get out of the marijuana business. Even if it's taxed here, they're going to find a way to send it in. You know what I mean? And once you tax something, they're going to find a way. They're criminals. They're going to find a way to sell it on the black market without taxes at lower prices. And there's just so many control issues that goes on with it.
Everything I'm having, no, they ain't necessity. Though I'm shining, keep on grinding. What you see ain't all of me. Though I keep.
Do you see a medicinal value of medical marijuana yourself?
Well, I assume that the medical marijuana you're talking about is the marijuana that is smoked, because currently you can get we prescribe a drug called Medicinal, which is pill form of marijuana. We use that in those people usually who are losing weight or have lost a lot of weight, most often associated with HIV or cancer patients. But assuming the medical marijuana you're talking about is the marijuana that is smoked. And while in Ohio we're not allowed to prescribe that, I am certainly familiar with that use. And I think that there have been some studies out that show that it is beneficial in some people, and may be the only thing drug that may relieve some people's nausea, pain symptoms, and other medical problems they have. So yes, I think there's a need for it and probably a good use for it.
Because officially it's still got per the federal government, it's still got no medical use. So unless someone comes up with a proven medical use, obviously doctors have testified that it helps with glaucoma and other illnesses, but until it's officially scheduled and proven that it has a legitimate medical use, I think they're going to have a really hard time legalizing it.
Now, do you yourself consume marijuana?
I do.
Now, being a caregiver, are you technically allowed to consume marijuana for yourself, or are you only allowed to grow it to sell?
Well, I'm only allowed to grow it to sell, but I have my own medical card, so I have my own caregiver that I get my own marijuana from. I have quite a bit of patients. I have about like 23 patients, and you're allowed 6 plants per patient, so I have quite a bit of plants, and I always keep half of them in harvest and half of them in grow. I just feel really good about helping people, getting them their medicine that they need to keep them from being sick.
So did you become a caregiver for the money?
No, I actually did it to help people and be like a good member of society because I just really enjoy helping people that are sick and help them get their medicine.
Now, is the money an added bonus for you?
I would say it is. The money is quite nice, but my main focus is just to get the medicine out there to the people that need it.
What would you say your favorite part about, besides helping people, your favorite part about being a caregiver?
I would say the challenge of just growing the marijuana because it's actually a really complicated process. There's a lot that could go wrong. The plants are on a strict light and water schedule. They could get bugs. They could die. And you know, none of that stuff's good. So it's kind of like a little game. And it's quite entertaining.
Did you buy your seeds or did you get them out of weed?
I bought them. And that's always the smarter way to go because sometimes when you get the seeds out of the weed, they can be infertile and they won't grow as well. But when you get them through like a company and you know you're getting good seeds, and that's always good for a good harvest.
I'll be up a bit away, 'cause they gon' judge me anyway.
Dispensaries you could kind of see now as bootleggers. Caregivers could be correlated to, bootleggers. You have these places that are selling federally illegal product right on the street, which is, I would say just as scary during alcohol prohibition.
Yeah.
Whoa, amber is the color of your energy. Whoa.
All right, what are your opinions on the drug itself?
Marijuana, inhaled marijuana, or smoked marijuana. I think if there's a medical need for it and it does help patients in their medical need, I think that that's a good thing. Beyond that, I do not think that it's a good drug to have out there that's used freely without some supervision by way of regulation through the pharmacy boards and the state medical boards. The recreational use of it, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I've just seen too many people's lives ruined with that and have that lead to other drugs that have been abused and just too many problems. But that's probably a topic of great debate, of course. So I can only say from my personal experience and what a lot of studies show that it's not a good drug to use other than if supervised and used in a medical sense.
I was gonna clean my room until I got high. I was gonna get up and find the broom, but then I got high.
And I believe that there's certain people that can benefit from this, and it's just about trying to reach those people. And, one of the big things right now is people will be like, well, you don't have to smoke, you can eat something. Well, most of the things that are in these dispensaries are unhealthy products that are just, and they're not necessarily aimed at helping people. They're aimed at people getting high, and they're aimed at people just being involved in kind of the pot culture. And it's really hard trying to figure out products that the people that are older that can benefit from it, what they actually appreciate. As a Schedule I drug, they're not necessarily allowed to test the drug or do experiments with the drug like they do with pharmaceuticals. And the big thing with pharmaceuticals is they have a mass number of people that will use them and test them. Once these medical marijuana states start getting large number of patients and they're able to do studies on a mass number of people, I'm talking millions of people, then you're going to get the government's attention. That's what the tobacco companies do. That's what the pharmaceutical companies do. You get a big, huge sample of people that can attest to the positive effects and the negative effects of cannabis.
Oh, I need it. I can take off. Oh, marijuana.
The arguments to be made for it is, if we're not gonna crack down and enforce it, it's federally you have to have a pretty extensive. You have to either catch them manufacturing it, i.e., an indoor grow or growing it out, in a clandestine area, or a substantial amount. Like we're talking, 500 pounds or better is usually what the threshold is. There's exceptions to it, but the laws on the books will let the federal prosecutors prosecute any amount above. I don't know. They could technically prosecute a pound of marijuana, but that would just jam up the court systems. Federally, we don't target a lot of marijuana dealers because the thresholds just aren't there. When it comes up in a trunk of a car that's a couple 100 pounds or 100 pounds or whatever, it's not the top of the priority when you have major heroin and meth and cocaine distribution cells working. So.
What are some of the side effects that you see with constant use of the drug marijuana?
Well, that really varies from person to person because some people, at least in my experience, have used marijuana for only a short period of time and developed what I'd say are significant problems. Others may have used recreationally for a number of years and not shown any significant problems. But probably some of the side effects or problems we see associated with it is oftentimes it will lead to other drug usage, which may become more of a problem than the marijuana itself. But again, everyone varies in how they respond to it, whether or not they run into other drug usage and abuse. But I've seen a number of individuals admitted to our chemical dependency unit over the years that the only problem they had was problem with smoking marijuana and not being able to stop. Certainly we know that it impairs one's thinking and reaction time, certainly, not to mention the side effects of the ingredients in it that may harm the lungs, increase the chance of lung cancer, because certainly it's more dangerous in using it than, say, cigarettes, as far as potential to increase the chance of lung cancer and lung problems, not to mention the mental problems that people run into with it. But I think the biggest problem is that when we see it, it can lead to abuse or use of other addictive drugs, which is another huge problem.